Chapter 133. Facing Lu Cheng's shut-up gesture, the spectators in Yimo Martial Arts Stadium seemed to have their acupoints pressed and their mouths stuffed. They turned into clay puppets one after another. The whole stadium was silent for a while, presenting an extreme and strange silence. The invincible Wei Xingtian of Yimo actually lost. Although he lost to the powerful ninth pin in a tag team battle, since he was known as the invincible local, how could he not defeat two professional ninth pin fighters? After a short silence, they came back to their senses and realized that they were provoked and slapped in the face. Suddenly, they burst into a roar louder than the previous one. All kinds of classic Chinese curses were madly spewed out, such as F***K, F***K, idiot, and so on. Lu Cheng put down his finger. He was very satisfied with the extreme silence of tens of thousands of people who dared to respond to him. He was also satisfied with the various curses he encountered now. The more they cursed, the more they exposed their lack of confidence, and the more it set off the silence just now. Just like a famous saying, the enemy's abuse and slander showed that you were successful enough. No wonder Master said that it was a very satisfying thing to fight until the whole stadium was silent and all the spectators were sullen and speechless. It was simply too satisfying. At the Songqing University Martial Arts Club seats, Li Mao, Sun Jian, Lin Hua, and Guqing were stunned at first. When the referee officially announced, they suddenly stood up, raised their hands, ignored the spectators, and cheered loudly. They didn't have their usual appearance and showed a bit of madness. They had been suppressed for too long and too ruthlessly. The battle just now, not to mention Lu Cheng on the field, even the spectators felt that it was extremely torturous. Lu Cheng was pushed into the abyss of despair several times, but he struggled to climb out again and again. Finally, he persisted until he saw the opportunity and saw the dawn of hope. He ruthlessly overturned the invincible demon king who seemed to be invincible. When the breath in their hearts was vented, it was very satisfying. It was simply like eating a ginseng fruit. All the pores on their body opened up, not a single one of them was uncomfortable. The more difficult the battle, the more the joy and excitement of the victory reward surged. When Coach Shi encouraged them in the locker room, although they were also hot-blooded and full of fighting spirit in their hearts, they still didn't have much hope of breaking through the iron wall of the fearless squad, even if they had two strong professional ninth pin fighters on their side. After all, they were professional eighth pin fighters. However, Lu Cheng and Lin Ke really created a miracle. The amount of self-denial he had before was equal to the amount of surprise he had now. Xianxia clenched her fists and cheered. She shouted out all the emotions in her heart, such as nervousness, uneasiness, expectation, surprise, and excitement, as if she had won the match herself. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, and her eyes were shining brightly. Her whole person was extremely bright and attractive. When she saw Lu Cheng gesturing for the audience to shut up, she suddenly restrained her ecstasy. Her eyes were like water, clear and gentle. Her mouth was smiling and her dimples were shallow. She felt strangely peaceful, as if she and Lu Cheng were the only ones left in the world. At this time she vaguely heard Coach Shi murmur something in a low voice as if he was saying, "You really won. I just wanted to give you some motivation. Wasn't it a small goal?" Xianxia thought silently. Lin Ke, who had been staring at the ring, pursed his lips and slowly loosened his clenched right fist. In the live broadcast room, the commentator He Xiaowei and the host of the TV station looked at each other speechlessly. They could see the awkwardness on each other's faces. Every word they had said before seemed to have turned into slaps that were ruthlessly slapped back. After a short silence, He Xiaowei's expression became serious, and he said as if nothing had happened, "Taking advantage of this time, I will analyze what happened just now for everyone." Through the replay we can clearly see that Wei Xingtian was beaten until he was stiff. His body seemed to be vibrating. We have reason to believe that contestant Lu Cheng used the tremor force, which was like a bomb exploding. The impact it brought shook the body from the outside to the inside, tumbled the blood and qi, and affected the five viscera. Of course, with the physical quality of a professional eighth pin in the dance stage, the tremor force shouldn't have caused such a big impact. But I have noticed one thing. Director, please replay these few scenes of the match between Wei Xingtian and Lin Ke. Everyone saw it. Contestant Wei Xingtian was also stiff, but he forcibly resolved it by relying on the ability of the dance stage. In the final fierce collision between him and Lin Ke, he must have suffered internal injuries. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were unstable, so he quickly became weaker and weaker. In the end, he was affected by Lu Cheng's tremor force, which triggered the previous internal injuries. It was difficult for him to recover quickly and he was on the verge of failure. Lu Cheng fought very fiercely in this match, but he was also very calm. He seized almost every opportunity he could, from getting rid of the disadvantage to seizing the victory. Of course, he was also lucky enough to fall to the place where the rubble was left behind by the previous battle. As for the question of civilization, I will only say one thing. Martial arts itself is the most uncivilized thing. Every move and every style is created to kill or cripple the opponent, not to stop. In addition, if such a martial artist doesn't even know how to make use of the environment, he might as well go home and nurse his child. In short, this is a victory worthy of congratulations. There is a little luck factor but more because of strength. The TV host was stunned. He looked at Xiaowei as if he was looking at a monster. His eyes seemed to be roaring and questioning, "That's not what you said just now. How can you slap your own face?" Xiaowei calmly looked back at him and secretly scolded, "You're so stupid. Do you think a nationally famous commentator can be found casually? This is an impetuous society. If you want to be famous, you have to be extreme. You have to shock people to death with your words. How many people scold and ridicule you is how famous you are, and fame is equal to money. It's not that I can't see some things, but I have to say the opposite. Anyone can explain it by following the rules. How can you stand out? Isn't there a song that is very good? Exaggerated. As for face, is face more important than money? Give me a few million and I'll scold myself to death in minutes. You don't even know how to dry your own face, how can you be a commentator? And this is why you're only a local TV host, and I'm nationally famous." While his inner thoughts were playing out in his mind, his mouth still didn't stop talking. Now Fearless Squad is in a bit of danger. Contestant Lu Cheng seemed to be an arrow at the end of its flight after such an intense battle. However, if contestant Dong Yi from Fearless Squad really thinks that way, then they're finished. According to the data, Lu Cheng has abnormal stamina. He might even be gifted in stamina. In Lu Cheng's private forum, the live broadcast posts were exploding. Yan Shaoling and Brahman kept posting, venting their inner excitement and joy. As for the content, many of them were meaningless tone phrases and all kinds of praises. They couldn't wait to use all the compliments they had learned. In particular, they felt that Lu Cheng's gesture to the audience to shut up was so cool that it was exploding. After a while, Yan Shaoling suddenly realized something. "Wait a minute, I remember someone just posted that if Lu Cheng wins, she will send seeds. Someone also said that if Lu Cheng wins, she will run around naked to celebrate." Unparalleled Dragon King had been waiting for a long time and immediately replied, after reminiscing about the twists and turns of the match, "I'm waiting to run around naked. Live broadcast please." Nye Chi also said happily. There was nothing more delightful than seeing Lu Cheng defeat a powerful enemy and having something to cheer about. Many IDs that usually lurked appeared, saying that they were waiting to run around naked. After a short while, Okamoto's fan said, "I'm the one who wants to send seeds. After the match ends, I'll drive." Beep student card. Yan Shaoling added, "I found the one who said that he wants to run around naked. Come out." At all the good names are eaten by dogs. All the good names are eaten by dogs appeared weakly. I'm going to the bathroom to run around naked. There's no live broadcast." Fiske. Everyone replied in unison. In Lu Cheng's dormitory, Kai Zongming and others couldn't help but cheer loudly and celebrate heartily. The opponent's strength was fully demonstrated through 2 consecutive matches, which really established the image of an unbeatable opponent. However, Cheng still defeated him. Even if the process was full of difficulties and he almost lost the match, it was fine as long as the result was good. The more difficult the process, the better the taste of victory. "I can't King recognize Cheng in the ring?" Kai Zongming praised. Chinamo clicked his tongue in agreement. "Thinking about how someone who can kill me with a single slap is usually so polite to me, I feel like it's unreal." When Wei Xingtian was beaten out of the ring, the seats of Fearless Squad were silent as if they were hallucinating. After a dozen seconds, Dong Yi threw away his jacket, stood up suddenly and walked towards the ring, leaving his confused teammates. At this time Wei Xingtian, who majored in bright stone skill, turned over and stood up. He rubbed his chest and walked to the stone steps of the ring. He stopped Dong Yi and said in a low voice, "Don't be careless. His physical strength is abnormal. He doesn't seem to be weak." Dong Yi was stunned and looked at the ring. He didn't know why, but his heart was suddenly filled with mixed feelings. Since the establishment of Fearless Squad, most people paid attention to and talked about Wei Xingtian, who was invincible in Yimo, and Qiu Yang, who was young and full of talent. Very few people mentioned him, and in the matches he participated in, it was indeed difficult for him to play an important role. But this time Wei Xingtian failed, Qiu Yang was injured, and the opponent's momentum was at its peak. The squad was on the verge of defeat. I am the only one left, and I am the only one who can carry this heavy burden. He took a breath, nodded to Wei Xingtian and walked up the stone steps. I am also of professional 9th pin, and I am not worse than any fighter of the same level. When Wei Xingtian returned to his seat, Qiu Yang asked with concern, "Brother Wei, are you okay?" Wei Xingtian shook his head. "Some small injuries, nothing serious." "Do you think old Dong can stop Lu Qing?" Qiu Yang asked anxiously. Wei Xingtian looked at the ring, paused for a moment and finally spat out 3 words, "I don't know." Seeing Dong Yi enter the ring, Xianxia sat down again, looking forward to Lu Cheng's second battle. Among all the people present, only she and Coach Shi knew how abnormal Cheng's physical strength was. As long as he was not injured in the previous battle, this battle was equivalent to a new appearance, and there was a small possibility that he would win. Can he really defeat Fearless Squad? She whispered to herself. Geezer sure snorted, that depends on whether the opponent is shameless. On the ring, Lu Qing stood calmly, waiting for Dong Yi to approach step by step. Right now, his momentum was like a rainbow and he was full of confidence in himself. They all covered their mouths in different ways, indicating that they understood. At the same time, they were a little jealous of Lu Qing. His girlfriend's gesture, expression and eyes were so adorable. The group of gamblers who were watching the live broadcast collapsed on the sofa one by one. Their faces were ashen and they were dumbstruck. The leader muttered to himself with a blank look in his eyes. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with eating by looking at the sky. What's the use of analyzing the strength of the bets? At this moment, the young man who had suggested to buy in the opposite direction of Xiaowei suddenly realized something. Big brother, there's no problem now. That toxic healer commentator is now leaning towards Songqing University Martial Arts Club. This was the protection of the mysterious power. Hearing this, the other gamblers were instantly revived and began to watch the competition attentively. Although Lu Qing was full of confidence, it didn't mean that he would look down on a fighter of professional 9th pin. When he saw Dong Yi walking up the ring step by step, the opponent's information naturally appeared in his mind. This ordinary-looking man was 28 years old this year. He was the oldest and the most low-key one among the 3 main members of the Fearless Squad. His ancestors were from a famous martial arts family in Yimo. It was said that they originated from Shangqing sect. Even the family's martial arts, Rolling Thunder Palm, was derived from one of the unique skills of the Thunder sect. However, after experiencing the changes of the country and getting rid of the old and ushering in the new, the Dong family had declined for many generations. Only Dong Yi was left. Dong Yi didn't open a martial arts school. Instead, he became a high school teacher. In his spare time, he participated in various small challenge tournaments and received a lot of prize money. He didn't rely on his salary to make a living. This time he was invited by Wei Xingtian. He was moved by the prospect of advancing in the division and was tempted by the hope of stepping into the dance stage. His Rolling Thunder Palm was closely related to fast and fierce. It was a completely different style from Wei Xingtian and Qiu Yang. His fighting style was more flexible and agile. However, once he grasped the opportunity, his palm could crack stones and was as fast as thunder. It had a terrifying ability to burst out in a short period of time. It wasn't inferior to strength. In the Rolling Thunder Palm, there was also a unique skill called Thunderbolt Blast. It was a sound attack similar to Lion's Roar. There was thunder in the belly and the sound from the mouth, shaking the opponent's ear and causing dizziness. For this kind of martial arts, before the martial arts reached a certain level, there was really no way to defend. One could only prepare in advance and leave some thoughts. Once encountered, one would immediately bite the tip of the tongue and other methods to quickly wake up and avoid the follow-up attack. However, if one was distracted to guard against this skill, the power of one's fists and feet would be reduced. It would be impossible to concentrate and go all out, which would weaken one's strength in disguise. Therefore, under certain circumstances, as the old saying goes, some martial arts are more threatening when not used than when used. Lu Cheng's power of blaze actually had a similar function. Unfortunately, it was not as good as Dong Yi's Thunderbolt Blast. Martial arts practitioners had rough skin and thick flesh. Once they were mentally prepared, the possibility of subconsciously shaking their hands after being burned was very low. There was no need to deliberately be distracted, unless the strength and temperature of the power of blaze was increased. Such a professional 9th pin was indeed not someone he could guarantee to win. Lu Qing was very clear. He wouldn't put himself in a higher position than other professional 9th pin fighters just because he defeated Wei Xingtian in a tag team battle. Not to mention that there was a little luck factor just now. If he underestimated the enemy who was similar to or just a little weaker than himself, a disastrous end was foreseeable. It was unknown how many famous martial artists were ultimately ruined by this blind arrogance. There was even a lack of people who paid the price with their lives. Lu Qing slightly moved both of his arms and felt their current situation. After the fierce battle with Wei Xingtian, although his physical strength was as good as before and there was no consumption, there were some hard wounds on the corresponding parts of his arms. Moreover, his mental and physical strength were almost exhausted. He had to rely on emotional outbursts and a strong momentum to maintain his peak state. The Jindan could heal fatigue and maintain physical strength, but it couldn't heal injuries and also couldn't restore mental exhaustion. How could he not rack his brains when fighting with a strong opponent like Wei Xingtian? Whether it was the unusually focused investment, the calm and firm judgment, or the belief to overcome nervousness and fear, it caused a lot of consumption of the so-called mental and physical strength. Once the mental and physical strength was consumed too much, there would be a phenomenon of thinking sluggishness, trance, and not being able to react in time. That was a big taboo in martial arts competitions. As for the Thunder Roar Zen, he was only able to use it under the condition of Wei Xingtian's help, in suppressing and withdrawing. Although he also had some experience, opened the door and found the direction, but if he really wanted to cross the threshold, he still needed a certain amount of time to explore, try and temper. Just like what his master said, breakthrough was a process, not a node. He stood in the center with a high momentum, but calmly and steadily, watching Dong Yi go up the ring and stand on the other side of the referee. Dong Yi suppressed the mixed feelings in his heart, and his ears were filled with cheers one after another. Dong Yi! Come on! It was still a response type of cheering, but it was more than a level lower than the previous roar. Dong Yi could even hear the fear and uneasiness of the fear of failure contained in it. Am I their life-saving straw? Dong Yi closed his eyes and suddenly opened them again. Behind him was only Tan Ming of amateur first pin. If he couldn't beat Lu Qing in this match or caused him to be injured, the result could be imagined. Although Fearless Squad was strong, there was no way back. At this moment, the referee didn't give Lu Qing a chance to recover, and shouted loudly, "Start." Dong Yi immediately visualized a flash of lightning in his mind. He bounced his waist and back, and the strength went through the soles of his feet, and pounced on Lu Qing as fast as thunder. Lu Qing had already adjusted his body to let his center of gravity flow like mercury, so that he could display his strength better than a professional 9th pin fighter. At this moment, as his waist and back wriggled, there seemed to be a round ball in his body, and it drove him to the side of Dong Yi like a ghost. But because his opponent was too fast, he couldn't pull away. Seeing this, Dong Yi didn't turn around. He stomped his feet, and his left elbow hit out horizontally with a snap, fast and fierce. Lu Qing put his left foot inward, straightened his back, tightened his right arm, and suddenly pressed down, just in time to block this fierce elbow attack. But at this moment, Dong Yi used the blocked elbow as a fulcrum, and with a snap, he threw out his forearm and hit Lu Qing's genitals with a crisp palm. The whole movement was done in one breath, and it was extremely fierce. Snap. Lu Qing's left hand had been waiting there for some time, and it blocked the attack without panic. And this was all because he and Xianxia had carefully studied the video of Dong Yi's fight a few days ago. In today's society, martial arts competitions were flourishing, and the spread of fighting videos was fast because of the internet, showing a trend of a big explosion of information. Every fighter only needed to fight a few more times, and his future opponents would thoroughly study his moves, and many of his killer moves and unique moves would no longer be unexpected. This was something that the ancient fighters couldn't imagine. In their view, it was right to defeat all the geniuses with one move. Today they killed a strong opponent in the south with this move, and tomorrow they would go to the north without knowing anything about it. In addition, the challenge tournament was a life and death battle with a referee, which only reduced the death and disability rate. Apart from the psychological aspect, it was not much different from reality, which attracted the participation of strong fighters. Therefore, the number of fights that the fighters of today had in their lives was probably 10 times or even 100 times more than those of their predecessors, and in every fight they had almost no secrets. They had to constantly explore and innovate their moves in order to defeat their opponents. Under the pressure of this almost cruel environment, the fighters of the same level in modern times would definitely be better than those in ancient times. Dong Yi had a deep understanding of this. Failing to succeed in one move, he immediately took advantage of the rebound force to withdraw his left arm, so as not to be caught by Lu Qing's big and small hand wrap, and enter the field of listening skill, which he was best at. Seeing Dong Yi retreat, Lu Qing immediately slid forward, tightened his thigh muscles and kicked out with the tip of his foot, aiming at his opponent's ankle. He wanted to use the fierceness and madness of the brutal blizzard, combined with the rainbow-like momentum that defeated Wei Xingtian, and completely suppress his opponent. Chapter 135. In the face of Lu Cheng's following low kick, Dong Yi had no time to retreat. He could only twist his waist and pull out his leg. Using his leg as his foot, he straightened his leg and kicked out. Bam! When the 2 feet collided, Lu Cheng's calf tightened. He pushed his knee and directed the rebounding force to his thigh and then to his waist and abdomen, straightening his spine. He used Dong Yi's foot as the ground to complete the second force. His right hand punched out quickly and fiercely. After numerous actual battles, especially the diversion force during the fierce battle with Wei Xingtian today, his mastery of the 24 blizzard strikes seemed to have improved to a higher level. He was actually able to connect the follow-up attacks in such an unimaginable way. There was really a feeling of continuous howling of the brutal blizzard. Dong Yi originally wanted to take advantage of the situation to dodge and open up the distance. He wanted to deal with it with his best flexible fighting style. However, before he could do anything, Lu Cheng's attacks came one after another. They were crazy and fierce, leaving no chance for him. He had no choice but to hurriedly raise his left arm, retract his right foot and step on the ground. He lowered his center of gravity, turned his waist and back fiercely, vibrating his joints and sending out a swing force. Bang! Lu Cheng's fist hit the middle of his arm. His body shook involuntarily. However, because his opponent reacted hastily and he had a lot of experience, he stepped on the ground with his right foot, wriggled his spine, straightened his waist and pulled his body back. Then he shook his left arm and shot out his fist like a spear, forcing Dong Yi to give up dodging again and hit him with his palm. This made Lu Cheng very happy. He launched 24 blizzard strikes one after another, constantly borrowing strength and taking advantage of the situation. Each punch was heavier than the previous one, and each kick was fiercer than the previous one. The more he fought, the crazier and fiercer he became. The cheers of the audience gradually died down as if they were holding their breath. Dong Yi was on the verge of collapsing under the violent snowstorm. He knew that if this continued, he would be beaten to a pulp. His opponent's current aura gave him a feeling of crushing everything in its path. I can't wait any longer. With a twist of his waist and back, he abruptly pushed his feet inward and sent a violent spiral force to the ground. The ring immediately trembled, like a house that was shaking in the thunder. There was a faint clanging sound that reverberated in the air. Dong Yi's shoes burst open. His palms were like rolling thunder, fiercely and terrifyingly striking towards Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng continued to borrow strength. At this moment, his momentum was at its peak, so he wasn't afraid. He visualized the lightning and fire stance and mega avalanche. He lowered his center of gravity and leaned his arched leg to one side to support himself against the ground. With a mighty and unstoppable momentum, he swung his right arm and struck out a mountain blast punch. He met attack with attack, met force with force and did not retreat an inch. Bang! With one fist against 2 palms, Lu Cheng and Dong Yi's bodies both swayed backwards. They were evenly matched. At this moment, Dong Yi's abdomen suddenly wriggled and his throat opened. Go! Thunderclaps exploded, the sound of thunder shook the heavens. Lu Cheng didn't expect Dong Yi to use his unique skill in such a situation. His head buzzed for a moment. Waves seemed to appear in his frozen heart lake, forming a whirlpool and breaking the ice layer continuously. This made him feel dizzy and his throat was almost filled with the smell of rust. He could no longer maintain his center of gravity and stumbled backward. Fortunately, he didn't underestimate Dong Yi. He maintained a cautious posture and bit the tip of his tongue at the critical moment. The stinging pain woke Lu Cheng up instantly. He quickly adjusted his center of gravity and kept the momentum of retreating, hoping to increase the distance and avoid the continuous attacks. However, Dong Yi didn't feel good after using his killing moves. He took a step back and then pounced again. He visualized the speed of thunder in his mind. He bounced his back and caught up with Lu Cheng in a few steps. His right palm formed a knife and suddenly chopped towards his opponent's throat. Lu Cheng just regained his balance and didn't have time to react. He could only twitch his shoulder and raise his right arm to block in front of his body. Bang! When the knife palm chopped Lu Cheng's arm, Dong Yi's left hand formed a bird's beak and quietly poked out, pecking at Lu Cheng's waist. Right palm leading, left palm poking, silent attack. This was the most dangerous killing move. Once the peck hit, Lu Cheng's waist would be crippled. At this moment, Lu Cheng, whose heart lake had been frozen again, suddenly felt his hair stand on end, as if he had sensed some kind of danger. Although he hadn't learned the basics of Ice Mirror, after so many days of hard practice, his condensation stance's sensing ability had improved a lot. With the advantage of his advanced meditation, he could simulate some of the feeling of absolute reaction. However, some was still some. Lu Cheng could only sense the change of his hair standing on end. He couldn't sense how and where the enemy attacked. Without thinking, he tightened his right thigh and gave a fierce side kick to Dong Yi's genitals. He was using offense as defense. Dong Yi certainly wouldn't trade his life for Lu Cheng's waist. Seeing this, he gave up the dark thunder palm, lowered his center of gravity, and quickly pressed down his left palm to block Lu Cheng's kick. Lu Cheng withdrew his kick, turned around and swept out his left leg. Bam! His left leg straightened like a soft whip and kicked towards Dong Yi's knee joint, forcing his opponent to block with his leg. After the collision and rebound, Lu Cheng took advantage of the momentum and launched a brutal blizzard attack again, bringing the situation back to the beginning. From the moment Dong Yi used the thunderbolt explosion, to the moment everything calmed down and returned to normal, the entire audience seemed to have experienced a great drama with ups and downs. Their cheers and encouragement for Dong Yi's victory had just reached their throats, but before they could reach their mouths, they abruptly stopped and were forcefully swallowed back down. Xianxia in the Songqing University Martial Arts Club seat didn't have much reaction. Compared to the battle between Lu Cheng and Wei Xingtian, the danger just now seemed to be nothing. Deep in her heart, she seemed to be sure that Lu Cheng would be able to resolve the crisis. Of course, worry, nervousness, fear and other emotions were instinctive and couldn't be completely controlled. This made her body tremble slightly, and her hands unconsciously clenched as if she was praying. Behind Xianxia, Sun Jian, Li Mao and the others let out a long sigh. Until now, they had just walked out of the danger just now. After a while, Dong Yi once again felt the terror of Lu Cheng getting fiercer and fiercer. He almost had the illusion that Lu Cheng would never stop. He took a deep breath as if there was a thunder in his body pulling at his abdomen. Open. Another thunderbolt from the clear sky, and Lu Cheng's movement slowed down. But compared to the killing move that he had planned for a long time, Dong Yi's hasty outbreak this time was not strong enough to make Lu Cheng feel dizzy. He also knew this, so he didn't want to hurt his enemy. He dodged to the side and opened up the distance with thunder-shocking steps. Lu Cheng took a deep breath, straightened his waist and back and strode forward, chasing after him. Mixed with the momentum of defeating Wei Xingtian and the crazy attack just now, he showed the power of chasing after a desperate enemy bravely. Dong Yi's speed was faster than Lu Cheng, but he didn't have the ability of mercurial balance, so he wasn't as flexible as his opponent. And the arena was limited, so he couldn't just run in a straight line. He had to watch every time he changed his direction and position. The distance between him and Lu Cheng would be shortened, making them closer and closer. Even I, a newcomer in the arena, began to feel tired, but he didn't show any sign of weakening after 2 fierce fights. Dong Yi's heart skipped a beat, knowing that he couldn't get rid of Lu Cheng. Seeing Lu Cheng was so powerful, like an overbearing and horrible statue, his spirit was immediately taken away and his courage was shaken. Lu Cheng caught up with Dong Yi in large strides, raised his left hand, and smashed his fist down toward Dong Yi's neck. Seeing this scene, the entire audience seemed to have vaguely sensed something and fell silent again. Seeing Lu Cheng's punch, Dong Yi's eyes suddenly shrank. He didn't block it with his palm, but straightened his waist and straightened his spine, forcibly moving an inch to his left. At the same time, his left hand was as fast as thunder, poking at Lu Cheng's right chest. This change happened in a flash. Lu Cheng didn't expect that Dong Yi would completely give up defense, so he didn't have time to break the inertia to avoid the blow. He could only lean to the left, letting Dong Yi's palm graze his chest and poke the inside of his right arm. Xianxia jumped up. In the heart-wrenching pain, Lu Cheng's left fist also hit Dong Yi's right shoulder. Crack. Dong Yi's shoulder collapsed and his bones were broken. Enduring the pain, Lu Cheng resolutely attacked. His left arm bounced back, shook violently and hit Dong Yi's temple. It was time to see who was more ruthless and faster. Bam. A palm blocked his left fist. The referee looked at Dong Yi, who had given up resistance, and raised his other hand, saying loudly, "Lu Cheng wins." Until now, Lu Cheng finally had time to reflect on the change just now. He covered the wound on his right arm with his hand and asked puzzledly, "Why bother? It's just a preliminaries, not a critical moment for qualifying. Why bother to exchange a broken shoulder for a minor injury? Why bother?" Dong Yi smiled bitterly and seemed to sigh. I can only play this role. The spectators in the stands finally understood and suddenly shouted in unison, "That's right. Dong, dong, dong." Their voices were a little sad but also deeply moved. Dong Yi was creating a chance for the last player to win. Dong, dong, dong. Hearing the cheers in the stadium, Lu Qing didn't make any hand gestures this time. He was moved by the tragic atmosphere, but he also enjoyed the tragedy of his enemy. He was quite satisfied to be able to beat the arrogant Yimo audience into a tragic state. He didn't tell Dong Yi out of kindness that he had exhausted a lot of his mental strength and was about to reach his limit. If he persevered for one more round, his chance would come. In the fearless squad seating area, Tan Ming stood up instinctively and walked towards the arena blankly. At this moment, Xiao Yang behind him shouted, "Go to the competition supervisor and report your injury. Ask for a substitute player." Tan Ming turned around and whispered in astonishment, I'm not injured." Xiao Yang had already walked in front of him. He supported him with his left hand and leaned to one side to block the camera. His right hand secretly punched out and hit his abdomen. Tan Ming bent down and heard Xiao Yang say in a low voice, "You're injured now." The pain finally woke Tan Ming up. He remembered that the big boy in front of him had a very popular nickname in Yimo. Mad Dog. Mad Dog, Xiao Yang. Chapter 136. Dong, dong, dong. The cheers echoed in the arena, full of a sense of tragedy. Dong Yi's eyes were slightly wet. He endured the pain, waved his uninjured left hand, turned around and walked out of the arena lonely. Such cheers, such attention were what he had been longing for a long time, but the sad thing was that it was a failure, not a victory. Fortunately, Lu Cheng's right arm was injured, so he would be crippled for the rest of the match. It opened the door for him to win the final round. He didn't let down the heavy burden on his shoulders. As he waved his hand and left the arena, the cheers of Dong Yi became louder and louder. Lu Qing listened quietly and watched his opponent leave. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although he couldn't understand his thoughts or his choice, he respected the decisiveness, firmness and courage he had just displayed. Not every martial artist would dare to do so. Lu Qing moved his right arm a little and checked his injury. He didn't find any symptoms of bone fracture, but the place where he was poked was swollen. His muscles and fascia were damaged to a certain extent, which seriously affected his strength. In other words, it was an injury that could be healed in a short time. But the problem was that a short time was at least a few days. In the upcoming match, his arm would be crippled. "Forget it, I'll do my best. Even if I lose an arm, I'm still not an amateur first pin fighter. No matter what, I can exhaust him and create an opportunity for Sun Jian to win the match." In the amateur level, the gap between first pin fighters was actually not that big. At this time, he was puzzled to find that the third fighter of Fearless Squad didn't rush to the arena. Instead, he stayed where he was and discussed something with Xiao Yang. Did he give up? Did he think that my stamina was limitless, so he didn't care about giving me more time to recover? Lu Qing didn't waste this opportunity. He closed his eyes, concealed his spirit and qi, and quickly entered a state of meditation. He put himself in a state close to sleep. Recovering a little bit of spirit was good. The Jindan was like a nebula, constantly expanding and shrinking, rotating slowly. Lu Qing felt like he was looking inside his own home. Thoughts settled one after another, floating like floating clouds. His heart was empty and quiet. Seeing that Lu Qing could still move his right arm, Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief and sat back down. She pouted and complained to Dong Yi, "How can this be? This wasn't an important match, so it wouldn't affect their chances of advancing to the next round. Why was his opponent acting like a madman and paying the price of a serious fracture just to hurt Qing?" Cheng's injury looked like he would recover in at most 10 days, but it was not the case for his opponent. As the saying goes, it takes 100 days to recover from a serious injury. Even if a martial artist's physique was outstanding and his recovery ability was extremely strong, he would not be able to fight again for at least 50 to 60 days before reaching the inhuman level. By then, the group matches would have ended long ago. Wouldn't it be stupid to miss the next 5 matches just for this one match? How much hatred and resentment. While Xianxia felt distressed, confused and indignant, Geezer sure replied with a sigh. There are too many bigoted people in this world, and there are also too many bystanders who can't understand what they value. With Fearless Squad's strength and martial artist style, without today's incident, when Xiao Yang returns and Wei Xingtian is alive and kicking again, how would Dong Yi have the chance to be remembered? Maybe he won't even be able to go on stage. The 2 people in front will take care of everything. After being ignored for so long, I have a desire to prove myself. Maybe this is a kind of martial artist spirit. Wei Xingtian majored in Brightstone skill. Lu Cheng had restrained his strength at the end and used a delicate force, so although he was hit hard just now, in fact he was not seriously injured. For him, what was more uncomfortable was that his internal organs were shaken. After a few days of rest, he would be able to recover to his peak state. Yanjika was born in a martial arts family, so she could understand. She nodded silently to show that she understood. But even so, she still disliked Dong Yi and still felt distressed for Lu Cheng. In the live broadcast room, the host of Yimo local TV station was shocked by the resolute and tragic scene. After a long time he murmured, "It's not necessary. Xiaowei, what do you think?" Xiaowei smacked his lips and said, "This match is a bit tragic. If not for the background, I would have thought it was the key battle for the qualification of Songqing Division. Dong Yi's courage is admirable, but I can't understand his choice. With fearless squad strength, losing this match won't be so bad that they can't qualify. They have already defeated another popular team, Azure Dragon Squad, in the last match. The following matches are all opponents who are obviously weaker than them. Losing a match would at most be a loss of face. But now I'm afraid Dong Yi will miss all the following group matches. Whether he can participate in the knockout match in May depends on his recovery. The loss outweighs the gain. Of course, with only the recovered Qiu Yang and Wei Xingtian, Fearless Squad will be able to defeat the weak in the following group matches. It's not a big problem even without Dong Yi. When they challenged Azure Dragon Squad in an away match, didn't Qiu Yang win 2 matches in a row? Wei Xingtian won the last match, and Dong Yi disguised as a coach to watch and cheer. Fearless Squad was led by Wei Xingtian without a coach. As for Lu Cheng's group, the favorites to qualify were Yimo's Fearless Squad, with 1 dance stage and 2 professional 9th pin fighters, and Songqing's Azure Dragon Squad, with 4 professional 9th pin fighters. If their strength was compared horizontally, in Xioshan's division, they could directly enter the second stage of the preliminaries. In many divisions, even if there was only 1 professional 9th pin fighter leading the team, there was still hope for the team to qualify and participate in the knockout round. In the middle of Lu Cheng's group, there were 2 professional 9th pin fighters in Hongluo Squad and Songqing University Martial Arts Club members. The other 4 teams were relatively weak. 2 teams only had 1 professional 9th pin fighter, and the other 2 teams were purely amateur teams who came to see and experience because there were no restrictions in the preliminaries. In other words, even if Fearless Squad were to lose the match with Lu Cheng's team, the only opponent with any weight behind them would be Hongluo Squad. Moreover, it would be in the last round. Although Xiaowei was exaggerating a little by saying that the rest of the competition would be Hongluo Squad, he wasn't wrong. The TV host listened and agreed. He couldn't understand Dong Yi's choice, so he could only smooth things over. No matter what, Dong Yi showed us the courage and spirit of a fighter. Xiaowei, what do you think of the next match? Xiaowei laughed and said, although Lu Cheng's hand is temporarily disabled, he has mercurial balance and abnormal physical strength. Why would he be afraid of an amateur first pin fighter? He will exhaust his opponent to death. Even if Lu Cheng reaches his limit halfway, Songqing University Martial Arts Club has other fighters. I think Fearless Squad will lose 99% of the time. As soon as he finished, the TV host heard the director's prompt, and his expression suddenly became strange. Xiaowei, Fearless Squad's 3rd fighter, Tan Ming, suddenly fell ill and can't fight. He will be replaced by a substitute. Xiaowei couldn't help but chuckle. Are you scared? Are you scared? The TV host quickly added, the substitute is Qiu Yang. Xiaowei was stunned and said, it's a bit interesting. The gamblers watching the live broadcast cheered and almost ran to tell others. Good news, good news. That toxic healer commentator supported Songqing University Martial Arts Club. And as soon as he supported, he immediately turned the situation around. In Lu Cheng's private forum, which was originally full of content such as pity, is the opponent stupid, beat another professional 9th pin fighter, and so on, suddenly exploded. All the good names are taken by dogs, was the first to post. Damn, where's your shame? This is completely shameless. So angry, but I still have to keep a smile. Lu Cheng has won 2 rounds in a row and he has earned enough. Eternal Nightfall, Yin Shaoling followed. Unparalleled Dragon King said weakly, according to the rules, it's normal for a substitute to fight. Otherwise, why would there be a substitute? But the sudden illness is too fake. There were regulations on the conditions under which a substitute could fight. It was not something that could be changed by the coach on a whim. In that case, the list and order of the three main fighters would not be necessary. It was completely possible to decide who would fight first and put the original main fighters on the substitute. Depending on the situation, the order of replacement could be arranged flexibly. Therefore, the competition supervisor had to confirm that the main fighters were injured, sick, or mentally broken before they could be replaced. Generally speaking, it was a last resort. Niechichi said bitterly, even if they shamelessly win this time with the speed of Lu Cheng and Lin Kei's growth, they can win the knockout round after the group competition. At that time, we can block them at the entrance of the qualification. That's the best way to vent our anger. I still want to say beat that mad dog. Brahman shouted. Humph, kids don't need to think about reality anyway. Damn, I'm still waiting for Cheng to fight 1 against 3. In Songqing University's dormitory, Kai Zhongming blurted out. His roommates cursed for a while before calming down. Zhao Chang pushed his black-rimmed glasses and said, "It's worth it to lose since they can force Fearless Squad to this point. It doesn't matter anymore." Classmate Little Ming looked at him, sadly. "But I placed a bet. Although it was not much, it was still 200. In Songqing University Martial Arts Club's seating area, Yanjika wasn't angry. Instead, she solved the lingering doubts in her heart. She turned to look at Coach Shur and said, "They are really shameless." She wasn't angry or surprised, but she was very disappointed and distressed. She felt that Lu Cheng's all-out battle was wasted, and that Cheng's injury and pain just now were not worth it. Geezer Shur snorted. To put it in a better way, Fearless Squad is full of abnormal desire for victory. Beside and behind him, Li Mao and the others loosened their clenched fists and sighed. Lin Kei closed his eyes and seemed to exhale softly. Qiu Yang, Qiu Yang, Qiu Yang. Seeing Qiu Yang walking into the ring, the desperate and tragic audience suddenly burst into thunderous cheers, making this name reverberate in every corner of the martial arts arena. Lu Cheng, who was sleeping in the middle of the ring, felt that everything around him was being pulled away and separated from him. Although he vaguely felt that the sound around him suddenly became louder, he couldn't hear clearly what the audience was shouting. After a while, he felt something in his heart and suddenly opened his eyes. He saw a big boy walking up the stone steps. "Qiu Yang?" Lu Cheng blurted out in surprise. Qiu Yang was also puzzled. He frowned slightly and said, "You just found out? You should have known from the moment the match supervisor checked Tan Ming's physical condition, right?" "I fell asleep just now." Lu Cheng answered silently. Of course he didn't say it out loud. He felt that his answer would make him look wrong. Yes. He maintained an unfathomable smile and didn't explain anything. At the same time, he took a light breath and felt that his head was much clearer. Chapter 137. Lu Cheng seized the time to recover a little so that his thinking and reaction would not slow down immediately. But he also paid a price. He had just learned that his opponent had been replaced by Qiu Yang, so he had no time to carefully recall Qiu Yang's match images and relevant information. Fortunately, Qiu Yang's fighting style was distinctive and his personal characteristics were very strong, which left a deep impression on him. Now, after a little thinking, many key points naturally emerged, so he was not at a loss. Qiu Yang, nicknamed Mad Dog, was the type who fought desperately and crazily. He was the type who was not afraid of death and seldom defended or simply dodged. He liked to attack with attack, take risks and seize opportunities. He liked to sacrifice himself to win. This fighting style seemed to be quite simple as long as one was fierce and courageous enough. But after careful analysis, one could taste the martial arts level involved in it. In a fight between masters, it was not always possible to sacrifice oneself to win. There would not be a situation where one would fearlessly attack the enemy's vital points when he was about to be hit and rely on the referee to stop the fight to win, because there was no such opportunity. In such a situation, the underdog would have no time to attack the enemy's vital points. If he forced himself to attack, he would be heavily injured in advance, making the counterattack weak and even abruptly stopped. Just like in the battle between Lu Cheng and Dong Yi, when faced with the Dark Thunder Palm, Lu Cheng did use a side kick to force his opponent to give up the killing move. However, the key point was not the side kick. Because of his preemptive reaction, Dong Yi would have cursed him for being an idiot and then calmly stabbed him in the waist. It would have been so painful that Lu Cheng couldn't use his strength and kick out his leg. If this was not enough, Dong Yi's hand was already on Lu Cheng's waist and pressed down and blocked. Who could complete the side kick? Therefore, using the method of attacking the enemy's vital points to win the enemy's compromise not only relied on courage, guts and ruthlessness, but also on vision, insight, judgment and the martial arts level to seize the opportunity. Without the latter, only the former would be underage gangsters. If they competed with courage and ruthlessness, they were definitely strong enough, but could they win against a professional master? They would probably be beaten so badly that even their mothers would not recognize them after one round. With an accurate judgment, a perfect grasp of timing, and a martial prowess that was sufficient to support the completion of one's thoughts, in addition to one's courage and determination, one would be able to exchange injuries for death by attacking one's vital points, forcing the other party to have no choice but to first protect themselves. Even if the opponent was a lunatic and did not change, the referee would still intervene and easily determine the final victor. That was because in a situation where there was no referee, it was clear who was injured and who was killed. The one who survived would definitely be considered the winner. Dong Yi's last poke at Lu Cheng was a perfect combination of vision, judgment, timing and courage. Of course, it was also because Lu Cheng didn't expect Dong Yi to have such a crazy idea. Once he was mentally prepared and knew Dong Yi's style with his mercurial balance, there was a good chance that he could hurt Dong Yi and dodge the attack at the same time. If there was a desperate fight where both sides were injured, the referee would usually not intervene if it did not result in death or disability. However, if the opportunity was equal and both sides were likely to die together or be disabled, the referee would decide to call it a draw after stopping the fight. This was not unprecedented. Of course, there was bound to be some wrangling. For example, if someone said, "I've just mastered the iron crotch technique so I'm not afraid of being kicked in the groin," or, "I've just reached the invincible Vajra realm so it doesn't matter if my vital points are attacked," then the referee would ask for a demonstration and change the decision according to the facts. In this, the referee was very important, but they were not omnipotent. There would be times when they could not stop it and death and injury were inevitable. There were similar cases every year, but the relative probability was not high, even lower than car accidents. Even so, the official competition would also buy corresponding personal insurance for all the participants. Every life and every disability would be investigated by the police department to confirm that there was no collusion or intentional negligence. If there was, it would be considered murder. As for the competition between the physical and vulnerability experts, the referee could not intervene. If the strength was not enough, he would not even dare to stay in the arena. Anyway, it was easy to injure experts of this level but difficult to kill or cripple them, so there was no need to worry too much about them. All in all, Qiu Yang had not only relied on his viciousness and courage to survive until now, but also his martial arts level and judgment. He was the best of the best. Whoever looked down on him because of his nickname and fighting style would definitely end up in a miserable state. Moreover, Lu Qing noticed something. According to the data, Qiu Yang had several experiences of forfeiting. When facing an enemy 1 or 2 levels higher than him, he would always forfeit without exception. In other words, he was very clear-headed and knew that if he encountered a strong enemy with the mad dog style, it was very likely that he would be seriously injured, and nothing could be exchanged for it. He was a very rational mad dog. While Lu Qing was thinking, Qiu Yang had already stood in position and set up his stance. The referee raised his right hand and announced the start of the match. As if he had received the order to start running, Qiu Yang sprang up and rushed to Lu Qing like an arrow. His eyes were crazy and his momentum was overwhelming, as if he wanted to raise everything in front of him to the ground and tear it into pieces. Lu Qing had come up with a strategy for this battle, which was to rely on his mercurial balance to fight for a long time. This was because similar crazy fighting style without any regard for one's own safety was a little bit like Qing Yaojin's 3 axes. Once they were dragged for a long time, their spirit would be dulled and their madness would be reduced. They would be on the verge of failure. Qiu Yang's previous battle videos could fully prove this point. However, facing the enemy's advance, Lu Qing did not immediately use the mercurial balance to dodge. He felt that under such momentum, once he flinched and dodged, it was very likely that he would subconsciously become timid, which would gradually reduce his morale. Then he would be chased by Qiu Yang like a defeated army. Therefore, even if he wanted to fight with the mad dog, he had to fight with the enemy for a while to reduce his momentum. Lu Qing's eyes reflected Qiu Yang's figure. When Qiu Yang was about to approach him, he suddenly twisted his waist, tightened his thighs and kicked his knee. This was a well-behaved move, which was also a good choice in the situation where it was difficult to use the right hand. But Qiu Yang, as his nickname, did not use his leg to block the kick, nor did he hastily change his direction. Instead, he jumped up in a way that violated the taboo of fighting at this level. Like a ferocious eagle, he leaped over the kick and extended his right hand, preparing to hit Lu Cheng's temple from the side. At the same time he bent his body and positioned his legs, waiting for a series of stomps on Lu Cheng's chest. Attacking from the top and the bottom, it was hard to defend. Ruthless and crazy. If Lu Cheng could use his right hand, he would have a lot of choices at this time, such as using his arm to block the kick, or using his elbow to protect his face. Then he would learn from Lin Kei's continuous attacks and shake Qiu away, and seize the opportunity to attack. But now he could only use one hand, and his right leg had not been withdrawn in time. He could only protect his head but not his chest. At the critical moment, Lu Cheng suddenly leaned back, rolled to the left and kicked out his right leg again, making it like a tight whip, fiercely lashing at Qiu, who could not change his direction in midair. Iron Bridge Dragon turning over. After this fall and kick, Lu Cheng not only avoided the attack on his temple and chest, but also completed the counterattack. With his left hand on the ground, his whip leg exploded the air fiercely and terrifyingly. Qiu had to squirm his spine and kick out his legs to avoid this dangerous attack. Bang! Lu Cheng took advantage of the momentum and stood up again, while Qiu fell a few steps away. As soon as he touched the ground, he straightened his knees and threw himself at Lu Cheng again without any hesitation. His momentum was extremely crazy. Facing this, Lu Cheng saw that the position was suitable, so he shook his left arm and shot out like a big gun to Qiu face. Qiu spine squirmed like a dragon trying to break free from its shackles. He slid to the right and came behind Lu Cheng. Then he clenched his right hand into a fist and hit the spine, fast and hard. During this process he stood in a very clever place, closer to Lu Cheng's right side, taking advantage of the fact that Lu Cheng's right hand was injured and could not fight back. At this moment, Lu Cheng swung his center of gravity and bounced to the left, which made him move quickly and avoid Qiu dragon-catching punch. After the Iron Plank Bridge Dragon Ascension, he adjusted his body muscles so that he was in the state of mercurial balance. He was not careless about Qiu's punch. He did not try to twist his waist and pull his leg because he was afraid that Qiu would lower himself and roll under him. Then he would perform the shoulder kick or monkey steals the peach. It was risky for an attacker, but Qiu would do it according to his style. Seeing that Lu Cheng moved away, Qiu stepped on the ground and made an explosion in the depth of the arena. Then he continued to attack crazily. As if there was a ball in his body, Lu Cheng turned again, but he did not escape. Instead, he swung his left arm for a short fight with abrupt force. As soon as Qiu approached, he visualized the mouth of a poisonous snake in his mind. He clenched his right hand and fought back without dodging. Poisonous punch? Biting force. Bang! With a strong and crisp sound, Lu Cheng's fist spewed out flames and collided with Qiu's right hand. Both of them took a light breath and withdrew their hands at the same time. One of them felt like he was bitten by a sharp tooth, the other felt like he was burned by a flame. Both of them were mentally prepared and finished their follow-up actions calmly, leaving no chance for the opponent to take advantage of. Seeing this, Geezer Shi and Yan Zhiko were puzzled. They did not understand why Lu Cheng used the power of blaze, which could not affect the opponent temporarily. Could it be that he wants to take this opportunity to temper and improve his supernatural ability? Geezer Shi pondered. Lu Cheng's idea was similar to his guess. Although his spirit had recovered a little, the mercurial balance required extreme concentration and could not be maintained for long. Therefore he had to plan early. He planned to use the power of blaze frequently to gradually squeeze the Jin Dan and try the second awakening. He wanted to try actively. After refining his bone marrow and 5 viscera bit by bit with Thunder Roar Zen, his physical quality improved rapidly. The cultivation during the winter vacation was not in vain. He thought that he could barely bear the initial backfire. He planned to try the Thunder Roar Zen in 2 or 3 weeks when he reached the entry level. Now that he was a little ahead of schedule, it should not be a big problem. However, ideals were just ideals most of the time. After a while of guerrilla fighting with mercurial balance, he tragically found that he had no chance to use abrupt force or release flames because the opponent would not cooperate with him. If he tried it rashly, he would be defeated before he could squeeze the Jin Dan. The bitterness in his heart couldn't be felt by outsiders, but both Qiu and the audience in the stands were getting more and more desperate. They couldn't see any sign of weakness from Lu Cheng, and they couldn't see any possibility of his physical strength declining. It seemed that he could continue to rely on his mercurial balance and wouldn't give up until Qiu was exhausted to death. Qiu narrowed his eyes and seized the opportunity when they were close to each other. In his mind he visualized a poisonous snake that shot lightning and bit people. His body trembled and his spine bent into a bow shape. Then he suddenly bounced up and pushed himself to the front of Lu Cheng at a speed beyond the body-refining state. He clenched his right fist and threw out the poisonous bite. Lu Cheng had a deep impression of this killer move when he watched the video. He did not dodge blindly because the subsequent chain of kicks would be more terrible. He shook his left shoulder and bounced up his arm to block the punch. At the same time, he steadied his center of gravity and was ready to twist his waist and swing his leg to block the next killer move. Bang! Lu Cheng suddenly realized that they were too close to each other. Qiu Yang's left hand was injured, so he couldn't punch out, leaving a huge opening for Lu Cheng to attack. His right arm was seriously affected by the injury, but it did not mean that he could not use it at all. Enduring the pain and the consequences of aggravating the injury, he could still throw a punch or two. Lu Cheng did not hesitate to tighten his right arm and endure the pain. Then he threw a seabed forward punch at Qiu Yang's lower abdomen. At the same time, Qiu Yang's crazy eyes locked on Lu Cheng's lower abdomen. I have not used my left hand because I was waiting for this opportunity. It can't use its full strength, but it can still help me win at the critical moment. My previous patience should have completely paralyzed you. Bang! He threw a crushing punch at Lu Cheng's lower abdomen. They threw out their punches quickly. Because of the difference in height and body shape, even though they were on the same side, they did not directly hit each other. Instead, they ran to the target by brushing against each other's fists. Bang! Bang! The referee reached out to block their fists. He gasped and said, "Draw, draw?" Qiu Yang felt that this was the most inexplicable match he had ever fought. How could the well-prepared trap end in a draw? Lu Cheng was as confused as Qiu Yang. He vaguely felt that he and Qiu Yang had made the same choice at that moment. Fortunately, I still have the desire to win, and I was brave and determined enough to not hesitate at that time. This is also good. A draw means that both of us left the stage. I still have someone behind me, but Fearless Squad has no one. In other words, we won. We won. In fact, martial artists could shrink their abdomen in time to avoid the most severe injuries, but after being hit, they would collapse on the spot and curl up on the ground. There was no problem with the referee stopping the fight in time. However, a draw would mean that their own team had lost the match. They had lost a match that they had originally thought to be in the bag. The audience fell into silence once again. It was an extremely oppressive silence. They felt that all their enthusiasm and expectations had gone down the drain. All their longing for release and ecstasy had been eaten by dogs. Disappointment, anger, and unwillingness quickly brewed in his heart. Lu Cheng enjoyed the silence and felt that it was no less than the cheers of the home audience. Then he heard the referee announce loudly, "A tie." Fighters from both sides leave the arena. He exhaled and glanced at Qiu Yang, who had restrained his madness and unwillingness. He saluted with his hands folded, turned around easily and walked out of the arena. This guy was too smart for his own good. He would probably regret it for a long time. Just thinking of this made him feel King good. You guys are so shameless to be the substitutes. Alas, after all, I'm not a saint. I will be angry at the enemy's provocation. I will bear a grudge against the abuse that insults my family and the girl I love. I can't help but fight back. I will want to vent my inner feelings. I will also gloat at the enemy's self-righteousness. I am such a person with many shortcomings. I am not tolerant enough and broad-minded enough. Well, after reviewing, I will continue to feel good secretly. Ah, this is really good. Qiu Yang's left arm hung down and his right fist clenched tightly. He took 2 deep breaths to prevent himself from going crazy on the spot. He gritted his teeth and walked down the stairs. He felt ashamed to face his parents and couldn't lift his head for a moment. The referee warmed up his old arms and legs and waved to the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. He said loudly, "The third fighter." Sun Jian was still immersed in the surprise of a tie and the joy of winning the match. At this moment he was a little confused. After a few seconds, he suddenly came to himself and pointed to himself, saying loudly, "Do I still need to fight?" "Well, the rules are set," the referee replied. Sun Jian stood up from his seat and walked down the stairs to meet Lu Cheng, who was coming back. Seeing that they were about to meet, he raised his right hand and tried to high-five Lu Cheng to celebrate. Lu Cheng wanted to respond, but when he moved his right arm, he felt a sharp pain and had to give up. His left hand was not in the right position, so it was very awkward to high-five. So he could only look at Sun Jian with a bitter smile. Sun Jian suddenly realized. He quickly clenched his right hand into a fist and gave a thumbs up. "Awesome. I'm sincerely convinced by you." You sound like you were not convinced before? Lu Qing criticized in his heart. He nodded with a smile and joked, so this counts as fighting, right? Sun Jian suddenly fell into deep confusion. Does this count as fighting or not? When Lu Qing returned to the seats of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Xianxia had already stood up and greeted him. She asked happily and worriedly, "Are you okay? How's your injury?" "It was okay at the beginning, but now it seems to be a little worse," Lu Qing answered honestly. At the same time he saw Li Mao, Guqin, and Li Xiaowen applauding and giving him thumbs up. Even Lin Ke nodded his head slightly. Xianxia glanced at him. Her eyes were bright and full of emotions. "Who asked you to be brave?" She stretched out her hands and checked Lu Qing's injury through his clothes. Lu Qing grimaced in pain and said in a low voice, "If I don't act brave, I'll lose. I'm almost exhausted. If Qiu Yang makes a killing move again, I won't be able to block it." Xianxia opened her clear eyes and asked curiously, "Is this the limit of your physical strength?" "The limit of my energy. I can still fight with my physical strength." Lu Qing smiled and said, "Actually, Dong Yi and Qiu Yang both lost because they didn't know me well. If Dong Yi could hold on for one more round, I wouldn't be able to suppress him. He didn't need to exchange a big injury for a small one. As for Qiu Yang, he was too impatient. If he fought with me for one more minute, I wouldn't be able to hold on. Unfortunately, both of them realized that they couldn't wait for my limit, so they took a more radical approach. There was a certain difference between the two fights. Dong Yi might not be able to hold on for one round of brutal blizzard. The winner was still unknown. Qiu Yang, on the other hand, would definitely lose as long as he was patient and didn't rush to attack." Xianxia smiled and said, "The advantage of asymmetrical information is also an advantage. Anyway, you haven't shown your limit yet. You can use this to influence your opponent in the future." Then she breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You don't have a big injury on your bones. I'll have to ask Coach Sure about it." Geezer Sure smiled and said, "Are you done whispering sweet nothings to each other? You finally remember this old man?" Xianxia suddenly blushed and turned her head to the side. She bit her lower lip with her white and neat teeth. Lu Qing could only laugh awkwardly and didn't know what to say. Geezer Sure was satisfied with his own humor. He looked at Lu Qing and said, "Your fascia and muscles are injured. I guess you need to rest for a while. Let's go back to the locker room and do a detailed examination." Coach, you can see that." Lu Qing was shocked. "Is this X-ray vision?" Geezer Sure said unhappily, "Haven't you heard of the enemy freezing heart move? You moved your right arm within 5 meters of me and affected the muscles and fascia there. If I didn't feel it, I would have wasted my years of martial arts training." "Oh, so it's the upgraded application of the ice mirror?" Lu Qing suddenly realized. He was more and more afraid of the ability of a high-ranked fighter. At this time, Geezer Sure reached out and quickly patted Lu Qing's wound. Xianxia and Lu Qing were scared, but they didn't have time to stop him. With a cold feeling, Lu Qing felt the pain in his wound was relieved a lot. Although it was still difficult for him to use force, at least he felt more normal. "Thank you, Coach." Lu Qing resisted the urge to call him teacher. Xianxia woke up and said angrily, "Coach Sure, why didn't you say hello first?" "Scared to death." At this time, Sun Jian stood beside the referee and looked at him. He raised his right hand and said, "The final round, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins." Sun Jian was confused and sluggish. He couldn't help but think, "I'm just going on stage to put on a show." The announcement of the result of the match suddenly woke up all the spectators from their silence. Some were cheering loudly for their own team members, some were screaming because of extreme disappointment, and some were angry and kept cursing their own team members and the Songqing University Martial Arts Club members. The scene became chaotic and a little hysterical. Not everyone could accept failure so generously. Seeing this, the staff immediately rushed to the seats of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club and said anxiously, "Hurry up and go back to the locker room. 5 minutes, only 5 minutes. Get changed and leave immediately before they leave the stadium." Lu Qing and the others were planning to celebrate this hard-won victory in the locker room. Hearing this, they were all shocked and didn't say anything. After Sun Jian left, they immediately returned to the locker room, took a shower, changed into their normal clothes and left through the side door with the staff. They boarded the bus that had been waiting for them. They didn't breathe a sigh of relief until the bus was far away from the stadium. Such an away game was horrible. Even in such a terrifying away game, the entire stadium was silenced by their own team. While feeling happy, Sun Jian smiled bitterly and said, "It's a pity that I didn't have a real fight." Geezer Sure had just finished checking Lu Qing's wound. He laughed and said, there will be plenty of chances later. These two rascals won't recover in a short time. Lin K forced himself to use the yin-yang twist so his joints are injured and his body is shaken. Not to mention the competition, he can't even practice in the next week. It will take at least 3 weeks for him to fully recover. As for Lu Qing, well, he could have recovered in a few days, but he forced himself to punch and aggravated his injury. It will take about 2 weeks for him to return to normal. The next match is our home ground. Our opponent is not strong. Sun Jian, Li Mao and Lin Hua are the main force. Xianxia and Guqing are the substitutes. P.S. I have something to do in the afternoon. The match in the evening is at 11 p.m. Chapter 139. As soon as Xianxia made the announcement, Lu Qing felt Xianxia sitting up straight beside him. Her eyes were shining. She seemed a little excited and a little nervous. In case anyone felt unwell, she would be able to enter the arena. Seeing this, Lu Qing said half jokingly and half confusedly, Coach, sure, I'm only injured in my right arm. I can still fight. It's not a problem for me to bully amateur fighters. If I meet a professional ninth pin fighter, I can also hold my own. He had focused all his attention on Fearless Squad and didn't pay attention to the opponents in the next 2 rounds. He thought that no matter how weak they were, they couldn't be that weak. They should at least be a team of amateur first pin. Otherwise, wouldn't they be asking for humiliation in the preliminaries? Xianxia chuckled and said, the opponents in the last 2 rounds are relatively weak, which is perfect for Sun Jian and Li Mao to practice. Even if they lose, it doesn't matter. We are here to increase our actual combat experience, not to advance. You have to give others a chance to grow, right? Besides, with your character and thirst for victory, when you really enter the arena, will you be able to resist not using your right hand at the crucial moment? Lu Qing felt a little guilty and could only laugh dryly. Xianxia continued, saying earnestly, and after 2 weeks of 5 high-level actual combat, you also need some time to digest and avoid becoming impetuous. Another very important reason is that your martial arts style has not yet been finalized. Every intense battle will have a great impact on you, causing you to develop certain fighting habits. For a martial artist, not having a habit is the best habit. This requires you to accumulate a lot of experience in a short period of time before calming down and leaving the battle for a period of time. Then you will examine yourself from a different perspective, analyze your problems and overcome your habits. He used the word calm twice. Lu Qing felt that it was reasonable. He felt that a fighter with a good teacher would take less detours in the process of growth. These words made Xianxia and the others ponder. They connected with themselves and understood. It was not good to leave in a hurry. Seeing that everyone was thinking about his teachings, Xianxia smiled proudly. Brat, today I will let you know what it means to be old and experienced. If I let you enter the arena, it is not impossible to advance in the group. When the time comes and you really fight for a place in the division and enter the second stage of the preliminaries in the second half of the year, what will you do? Aren't you slapping this old man's face? The carriage was quiet for a while. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to Yimo Transit Station, everyone began to reminisce about the competition just now as well as the hard-won harvest. We had to sacrifice 2 of our main forces in order to barely snatch victory from Yimo. It was truly bitter and difficult. Li Mao could not help but sigh. Guqing nodded in agreement. Isn't that so? Lin Ke and Cheng were both very capable. They had managed to do the impossible. It's just that in the end it felt like we were running away. You can't say that. Sun Jian immediately retorted and posed as if he was singing an opera. This is called playing the hero in Changban Slope, going in and out of 1,000,000 soldiers 7 times, and then retreating calmly after killing them all. His words immediately caused the crowd to burst into laughter. The atmosphere was joyous, filled with the joy of victory. In the live broadcast room of the TV station, the local host's face was ashen. He could not hide his depression and disappointment. He could only smile stiffly and say, Xiao Wei, can you give us an analysis of the final tie? Xiao Wei said excitedly, this is my battle to establish my name. Didn't some people say that I'm a toxic healer? Look, didn't Fearless Squad also lose today? I predicted in advance that they would lose 99% of the time. That's why we shouldn't be superstitious. If you spread rumors again, be careful not to be struck by lightning. Alright, back to the topic. Let's look at the last part in slow motion. Were both sides synchronized? They both disregarded the consequences and used their injured hand, resulting in a lose-lose situation. However, I have to say that there is a difference between their seemingly identical actions. Xiaoyang actively created an opportunity to use his left hand, while Lu Qing passively reacted. In other words, Xiaoyang had carefully designed a trap with his injured arm from the beginning, waiting for Lu Qing to step into it. But, because he was too confident and proud of this, he neglected the possibility of his opponent risking his life. He failed to see Mao Tai and went for wool and came home shorn. When we were first challenged by the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, I bet that the fearless squad definitely looked down on them. They must have thought that since we have a professional 8th pin in the Dan stage and 2 professional 9th pin masters, why would we be afraid of a bunch of immature kids? It's not a big deal to lose to Xiaoyang. In the end, everyone saw that even with Xiaoyang, they still lost to Songqing University Martial Arts Club and lost face. Of course, this can't be entirely their fault. Who would have thought that Songqing University's Lu Cheng's stamina would be so abnormal? With him, it's equivalent to having 2, 3, 4, 5 professional 9th pin masters or maybe even more. Anyway, I can't see where his limit is. This makes the Songqing University Martial Arts Club equivalent to a weakened version of the Azure Dragon Squad, a strong contender for the qualification to advance in this group. Defeating the fearless squad, who had underestimated their opponent and had engaged in a fight in advance, isn't too inconceivable. He Xiaowei was enjoying himself when he suddenly realized that the host beside him was looking at him strangely. The director, cameraman, and lighting technician in front of him were also looking at him strangely. They all looked like they wanted to slap and kick him. This is Yimo TV station's building. Almost everyone here supports Fearless Squad. The people here are tough, even a random passerby might have an amateur level. F***CK. Even if I'm also a 13 Grand Guardian's brute training, I probably won't be able to walk out of this building if this continues. A wise man submits to circumstances. He smiled shyly and forcibly turned his inclination back. For Fearless Squad, this isn't the end of the world. It's better to suffer a setback early than later. It's better to suffer a setback in the group stage than in the knockout round. As long as they can learn their lesson and stop underestimating their opponent, with their strength and foundation, they're still a popular team to advance in this division. After saying all this in one breath, He Xiaowei saw the director and host nodding slightly and softening their gazes. He Xiaowei quietly heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, I'm quick-witted and battle-hardened. The gamblers in front of the TV were already paralyzed on the spot, muttering things like rooftop and County Hotel to themselves. In Lu Cheng's private forum, fans had already gone crazy. They excitedly started forum chatting and no longer looked for posts to reply. Ha, I just need to maintain a smiling expression. The moderator, Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling took the lead. Nye Chichi followed closely behind. Listen to my Barba-like laughter and you'll know how excited I am. Defeating the strong with the weak and creating miracles, that's how exciting it is. Brahmin was even more delighted with her words. Who asked you to be shameless? Who asked you to look down on my idol? Who asked you to call him Mad Dog? You should have called him Husky instead. I can't believe he won. It's only been a month and my idol can already defeat 3 opponents at once. In the crazy atmosphere, Unparalleled Dragon King tried to maintain his rationality and seriously analyzed. It's not that Lu Qing can defeat all the professional 9th pin fighters. Although his fighting talent is really good, he's good at judging, seizing opportunities and is often quick-witted, but the most fundamental reason is that he's in the stage of rapid improvement. Also, he's a martial arts newcomer and hasn't been fixed in all aspects. Almost every competition has new things and new changes, which makes people unable to predict in advance through previous videos. Plus, with his extremely abnormal physical strength, he can really make those experienced masters feel overwhelmed. Because it was a forum chat, he divided such a long paragraph into several posts, so that it could be displayed in the title. We don't want to listen to the analysis today, we just want to celebrate. Drive. Those who wanted to drive just now, come out. Yan Shaoling shouted. Okamoto's fan laughed. Drive right away. Underage girls, stay away. You'd better continue to be soft and cute. Humph, in this online world full of old drivers who can always be soft and cute. Now is the time to celebrate Lu Cheng defeating a strong opponent. Why don't we tear off our masks and face it naked? No, face it frankly. Yan Shaoling replied with a spirit of self-deprecating. Okay, I'll post it right away. Okamoto's fan immediately agreed. After a short while he posted a post. The old driver is driving, the beautiful young woman and her harem. Beep, Sawadika. My Buddhist name is Luan Lai, snatched the sofa. Hey student card. Yin Shaoling also appeared here. After swiping the card to reply, Unparalleled Dragon King appeared. Go to hell. It's the first episode of the Calabash Brothers. Yin Shaoling followed up and replied, Go away. You're not a real driver. After a long time, in the aftertaste of the celebration, Brahmin found Yin Shaoling. Little Nightfall, I think we need to be careful of some people from Yimo. They look so excited. In the past, fans of Longhu Club and Shangqing sect often bombarded each other's forums. Yin Shaoling replied calmly. If they want it, then so be it. There aren't many people in our forum anyway. It's not a big problem to be affected for a day or two. When the time comes, we can just find a software to delete them in batches. Thinking about it is one thing, but I'm still angry. When our Lu Qing improves little by little and has more and more fans, let's see who dares to bully our forum. Even if they want to be bombarded, they have to consider the price they have to bear. In the home team locker room of Yimo Martial Arts Stadium, the atmosphere was so oppressive that it was terrifying. No one dared to speak for fear of provoking Mad Dog. Qiu Yang's expression was gloomy, no longer as fresh and clean as usual. His eyes were filled with dangerous irritability, as if he couldn't wait to find someone to fight to vent his anger. Wei Xingtian sat quietly on the bench, like a volcano that was about to erupt. After a few minutes, Wei Xingtian suddenly stood up and sighed. The reason for today's failure is because I underestimated the enemy. I underestimated Songqing University's Lu Cheng and Lin Quebec. It would have been better to arrange for old Dong to take the lead. Go out, appease the audience and accept the interview. If a defeat can defeat us, then what is the point of practicing martial arts and participating in the preliminaries? We should just go home and sell sweet potatoes. Old Dong is treating his injury in the emergency room. Don't let him down. After finishing his words, he strode to the locker room door, facing failure head-on. Qiu Yang exhaled and followed him. The reason why he was convinced by Wei Xingtian wasn't because he was better than him, but because he was arrogant and unruly, but he didn't lack any of the responsibilities he should have. In the cafeteria of Songqing University, Lu Qing put down the ointment bandages and the tray he was carrying, looked at his right arm that was bulging because of the bandage and joked to Yen Zhika. I'm always a little worried. I always feel that the school hospital is a bunch of veterinarians. Yen Zhika sat opposite him, supported her cheek with one hand and couldn't help but laugh. Aren't you scolding yourself? That's true. Lu Qing held the chopsticks in his left hand, picked up the chicken in front of him, put it into his mouth and showed off. Although my right hand can't do delicate work for now, my left hand is not bad. With his fine control of the muscles in his body, he could barely maintain his daily life with his left hand. Yen Zhika didn't change her posture, rolled her eyes and smiled. I also said that if your left hand is not convenient, I will reluctantly help you pick up some food and feed you. Since you are so good. Lu Qing suddenly had the impulse to bang his head against the wall. Why am I so stupid? He glanced at the plate, deliberately used the chopsticks to pick up the peanuts in the Kung Pao chicken. Pack, he didn't hold it firmly and dropped it. Pack, he didn't catch it again. You see, I can only pick up something that is easy to pick up. He looked at Yen Zhika eagerly. Yen Zhika rolled her cute eyes, looked at the ceiling of the cafeteria, held back her laughter and said ruthlessly, Then eat the part that is easy to pick up or I can give you a spoon? Lu Qing was speechless for a moment. Seeing him like this, Yen Zhika's dimples appeared. She picked up a peanut and put it to his mouth, not daring to look at him, only looking at the two chopsticks. Lu Qing was delighted, opened his mouth and took a bite. After chewing carefully and swallowing, he praised, It's 100 times more delicious than usual. This is the taste of sweetness. Too exaggerated. Yen Zhika scolded with a smile and then sighed with a slight blush. When I used to check Weibo and forums, every time I saw someone saying that the most tired couple was feeding each other in the cafeteria, I would like it. I never thought that I would have such a day. Chapter 140. Hearing Yen Zhika's exclamation, Lu Qing felt sweet and happy. He smiled and said, You are not feeding a lovey-dovey couple, but caring for a disabled person. While speaking, he moved his right shoulder slightly. Yen Zhika was amused by Lu Qing. You are so good at making fun of yourself. Making fun of myself every day makes life sunny and beautiful, Lu Qing said humorously. As the days of dating increased, he felt that he could express himself more and more in front of girls. He was no longer so nervous and could often be humorous and witty. Yen Zhika covered her mouth with her left hand, smiled and said in a low voice, Then I'll give you some sunshine. She reached out her chopsticks, broke a braised meatball and put a small part of it in front of Lu Cheng's mouth. This time she didn't avoid his eyes. Her eyes were clear and her smile was shallow, like a pool of water that could drown people. Lu Cheng almost couldn't move his eyes away. He put the small part of the braised meatball into his mouth and stuffed it full. He didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but he really felt it was more delicious than usual. Looking at his wriggling cheeks, Xianxia supported her cheek with her left hand and smiled. She seemed to find it more interesting than eating. After finishing the meatball, Lu Cheng said in a low voice with a thick face, "I feel your sunshine shining into my heart." Xianxia laughed and turned her head. She said with a slight blush, "You are so mushy. Are all boys so mushy after falling in love?" "I don't know about that. It's my first time falling in love. I've never seen how other people fall in love." Lu Cheng answered with a smile, "You should eat too. Don't just care about the disabled." Although it was sweet and memorable to be fed by a girl, it would be a great sin if she was hungry because of it. Xianxia was amused again. Her voice was soft and soft. Then she picked up a piece of cola chicken wing and nibbled it slowly. Lu Cheng felt that time flew by while feeding, eating and chatting. It seemed that in the blink of an eye, the dishes on the table and several bowls of rice were all gone. At this time he thought of something and said deliberately, "Coach Yen, you may have a chance to play next week." Xianxia was stunned at first, but then she laughed and joked, "Wow, you're cursing senior brother Sun Jian and the others to get hurt. Do I look like that kind of person?" Lu Cheng asked back with an aggrieved expression. "Yes you do." Xianxia answered affirmatively. Then she laughed like a beautiful flower. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. After the girl calmed down, he said seriously, "Actually, I'm more worried about Senior Li Mao. I don't know if he can overcome his nervousness this time. If the situation worsens, he might not be able to handle it and withdraw before the name list is submitted." "You're right." Xianxia thought of what had happened last semester. "I wonder if Senior Li Mao can get some counseling." Lu Cheng thought for a while and said, "I think that if I let him go at this time he will only doubt himself more and feel more pressure. Besides, a week of tutoring won't do much good. The main thing is whether he can get out of it on his own." "Yes, coach sure should have a plan. He knows it." All of a sudden she exclaimed in a low voice, "In that case I might really be on the stage. What should I do? What should I do? I'm suddenly a little nervous." Lu Cheng laughed and said, "It's normal to be nervous. It can actually help you perform better." Speaking of this, he revealed his true intention. "How about we continue the actual combat training tomorrow afternoon?" Xianxia said worriedly, "You're injured." "Just one arm. It's more than enough to be a sparring partner." Lu Cheng patted his chest exaggeratedly with his left hand. "Do you think I can't help using my right hand when I'm sparring with you?" "Who knows?" Xianxia deliberately dragged her voice. After a moment of silence she said, "Well, you have to be careful." Yes. Lu Cheng beamed. "After the special training tomorrow, you go back to the dormitory and take a nap. I'll find you at 3 o'clock and we'll go to the martial arts arena to train for an hour. Alright, I heard that the movie The Amazing Wizard is pretty good. Why don't we go to the city center and find a place to watch it? After 6 or 7 o'clock, we can go eat the stonefish that I mentioned before. It's very good." This was the arrangement he had planned for a long time. If he lost to Fearless Squad, he would invite Xianxia to watch a movie and eat stonefish in the name of relaxing. If he accidentally completed his small goal, of course he would use the excuse of celebrating. All in all, they were all excuses to ask Xianxia out. Xianxia smiled and said, "What a coincidence. My roommate said that we would go to watch The Amazing Wizard together for a group activity tomorrow night." Lu Cheng felt like he was hit in the head. His brain was spinning quickly, thinking of how to bewitch the girl. At this time Xianxia snorted and looked to the side. "Since you're a disabled person, I can only reluctantly let them down." "Good. Coach Yen is so beautiful and kind." Lu Cheng was overjoyed and complimented. This date didn't need to be checked out. They were all checked out last time. After complimenting, he asked casually, "The relationship between you roommates seems to be pretty good." "Yeah, there are good and bad dormitories everywhere. Like you guys, it should be the same, right?" Xianxia asked curiously. Lu Cheng nodded and said, "My 2 roommates in the small dormitory are not too fussy. Their personal habits are okay and they get along well. Our big dormitory next door has 2 weirdos. One of them would video chat with someone every day when he's free, regardless of whether his roommate is resting or not. The other has bad hygiene habits. His clothes are soaked in water and he doesn't wash them. Therefore they often have conflicts. Xianxia smiled and said, the girls' dormitory is almost the same. But maybe girls are more attentive to details and care about more things. I leave early and come back late. Except for sleeping, I don't spend much time in the dormitory. So I have a good relationship with them. They talked about this topic for a while. Xianxia knew that Lu Cheng was still tired, so she urged him to go back to the dormitory to rest. She planned to finish the homework she had accumulated last week. At this time the sky was dark and the lights were on. Lu Cheng walked Xianxia to the door of the third building and chatted with her for a while. Then he saw her walking to the door of the dormitory. She suddenly turned around and said with a smile in the light, Cheng, you're awesome today. Xianxia finished her cute and encouraging pose and hurriedly turned around and ran into the corridor of the building. Lu Cheng was in a daze. After a long time he came to his senses and couldn't help but smile. She was saying that I did a great job defeating the strong enemy this afternoon. In the corridor, Xianxia reached out her hands that were warmed by Lu Cheng and put them on her cheeks. She felt the heat of embarrassment and happiness and scolded herself, why did I say it out loud? It's so embarrassing. Thinking of this, she suddenly realized something. She used the chopsticks that she had fed Lu Cheng before to eat again. Does this count as an indirect kiss? Xianxia stopped at the corner of the corridor unconsciously. Her eyes were full of anger and embarrassment. Lu Cheng walked briskly to his own dormitory, recalling every detail of his interaction with Xianxia along the way. Suddenly, he said to himself happily, it seems that she didn't change her chopsticks. She used the chopsticks that she fed me to eat again. This is an indirect kiss. Thinking of this, Lu Cheng suddenly felt that the food before was 100 times sweeter, no, 1,000 times sweeter. Well, isn't this idea too wretched? Lu Cheng tried to be serious but he couldn't help thinking about it. Xianxia returned to the dormitory and saw that her roommates were all there. She took a deep breath and plucked up the courage to say, I can't go to the movies tomorrow. Why? Li Liantong, who was sitting at the desk and writing a report, turned around and asked in surprise. Xianxia hesitated for a moment and decided to tell the truth, I have to go on a date with my boyfriend. Her voice became lower and lower. Date? Boyfriend? Xuanhuan, who was lying on the bed playing with her phone, suddenly sat up and asked in surprise. Li Liantong and Zhong Yanru, who was playing games on the computer, also stood up at the same time. You have a boyfriend? When did you have a boyfriend? Xianxia was embarrassed by their sparkling eyes. She forced herself to keep calm and said, just on Valentine's Day. Our relationship wasn't very stable before, so I didn't mention it. Is it the boy who stopped at the door of our dormitory and confessed? Zhong Yanru and Xianxia were in the same major. She was the one who accompanied Xianxia back that day. She was natural and unrestrained and didn't care about trifles. She was the lubricant for their good relationship in the dormitory. Oh. Xianxia bit her lower lip and said, he's a teammate of the martial arts club, a former high school classmate. I told you that you would get into trouble sooner or later if you kept going to the martial arts club. You really got into trouble. Li Liantong joked and gossiped, what kind of boy is he? Isn't he handsome? No, his appearance is quite ordinary. He's clean and pleasing to the eye. Xianxia answered frankly. Li Liantong thought of something and suddenly laughed, I have something to say but I don't know if I should say it. If it's too dirty then don't say it. Xianxia answered without hesitation. Only 2 of her dormitory mates were from the School of Business and Economics. The other 2 were from the School of Clinical Medicine. Although Li Liantong had never had a boyfriend before, she was both dirty and dirty. She could often come up with shocking words. However, in front of outsiders she was dignified and pure. Li Liantong laughed and said, since his appearance is ordinary, then he must have a lot of inner qualities. She emphasized the word inner qualities, which would create ambiguity when people heard it. Bah! Hello Dirty Tong, goodbye Dirty Tong. Xianxia laughed and scolded. Xianxia said with grief and indignation, such a cute and beautiful girl like Ku was abducted just like that. I can't accept it. A lot of boys in our major are probably crying. Last time when Ku sent me textbooks they were simply shocked. From time to time they would ask me about the situation. Her sexual orientation was normal, but she loved beautiful things the most, including beautiful girls. Her catchphrase was white, fragrant and soft girls. Who didn't like girls? The boys in our college will probably be devastated. The goodies have flowed into the fields of outsiders. Zhong Yanru also joked and then asked curiously, Ku, what kind of boy is he? Xianxia thought seriously and suddenly laughed. He's a silly guy, very silly. But he's considerate, gentle and occasionally humorous. He's more attentive and attentive. As she spoke, she thought of the fresh cream cake that Lu Cheng gave her. She thought of Lu Cheng's possible appearance when he was checking the spot and his foolishness when he deliberately hid it. While she was recalling, she suddenly saw Li Liantong hand a mirror to her. She laughed and said, "Ko, you look like a typical girl in love now. Women in love will become beautiful indeed." Xianxia looked at her in shock. She saw herself in the mirror unconsciously smiling. Her cheeks were slightly red and her eyes were like stars. Gentleness was exposed and sweetness was hidden. She seemed shy and happy at the same time. She was so beautiful that even she was a little surprised. Is this how I look now? It's only been 10 days since Cheng confessed. It's only been 10 days since I tried to accept. Chapter 141. While Xianxia was staring at herself in the mirror in a daze, Xianhuan leaned on the edge of the bed and supported her chin with one hand. She praised and teased, "Now I finally understand what glowing means." Li Liantong laughed and said, "Ku, wait until you've been showered with love for a while, then you'll understand what it means to be a beauty." Xianxia suddenly woke up and blurted out, "Although I'm embarrassed by your compliment, I'll still accept it. But you have to explain why you use such a strange word like showering." "Is it strange?" Li Liantong laughed and said, "You need to learn about it. Maybe it'll come in handy soon." Xianxia blushed and immediately changed the topic. "Dirty Tong, look at you. You look so pure and pretty. Why are you so dirty?" Xianxia looked at Dirty Tong and said, "Dirty Tong, why are you so dirty?" This is called storing up theoretical knowledge. Li Liantong's expression didn't change. Xianxia continued, "Of the two boys who chased after you, which one did you like?" "None of them." Li Liantong suddenly realized something. "Ku, don't try to drag me into this matter. You have to bring your boyfriend out and let us see who has captured your heart. We have to bring him out for a walk." "That's right. As your boyfriend, he didn't even treat us to a meal. That's so incompetent. I don't know how he managed to chase after you." Zhong Yanru also joined in. She was a little chubby but not ugly. Born in a divorced family, she developed a generous and caring character. Xiangyang immediately patted the bed and echoed, "I'm going to face my love rival. I want to see how he managed to kidnap our fair, fragrant and soft Ku." She was a tall girl with wheat-colored skin. When she was not wearing glasses, she would look rather muddle-headed. However, once she put on glasses, held a scalpel and faced a little white mouse and a little white rabbit, she looked a little like a cold killer described by Li Liantong. Xianxia couldn't handle their teasing and had to surrender. Okay. I'll bring him to meet you and treat you to a meal when I have time." Lu Cheng took out the key with his left hand and opened the door of his own dormitory. The living room was empty, but there was a lingering smell of alcohol. "We're having a weekend meal together and playing online games?" He guessed the whole story and walked slowly to his little dormitory. Suddenly, he heard the sound of the doorknob turning quickly. His heart skipped a beat and he immediately took a few steps back. At this moment, the wooden door of Kai Zongming's dormitory opened, and Zhao Chong, Qin Imo, and the others jumped out. They were holding something that was used during birthday celebrations, and they sprayed it in front of Lu Cheng. The colorful strips almost fell to Lu Cheng's feet, and they almost covered his head and face. "Welcome back, our great master." Kai Zongming looked at Lu Cheng cheekily. "Surprise? Surprise my ass." Lu Cheng scolded jokingly. "How did you come up with this idea?" "Fortunately, my senses were sharp and I retreated in time. Otherwise, I would have to take another bath. With one hand injured, this was a difficult thing to do." Kai Zongming pointed at Qin Imo and said, "After we asked about your injury, we just wanted to congratulate you verbally. But Qin Imo insisted on doing something to make it livelier and grander. We thought that since we had nothing to do, we might as well just let him be." He had a helpless look on his face as if they were adults accompanying a child. But Lu Cheng clearly remembered that little Ming was the one who made the most noise and was most pleased with himself. "What surprise? I'm not fooling around. I'm just grateful to Cheng for making me proud in front of my friends." Qin Imo, who looked like a refined beast, immediately retorted. "What do you mean?" Kai Zongming asked in surprise. Obviously, he had never heard Qin Imo mention this before. Zhao Chang and the others were also curious, waiting for Qin Imo to answer their doubts. Qin Imo laughed and said, "Let me drink a mouthful of *tea and slowly explain." Lu Cheng almost burst out laughing. He felt that although Qin Mo, a rich second generation, didn't have much interaction with his roommates in the entertainment circle, he had a good personality and was easy to get along with. In the afternoon, everyone in the dormitory felt exhausted after watching Lu Cheng and the others' tough and fierce competition. Qin Mo took out his phone and took a blurry picture of the TV. He opened it and shared it proudly. "Congratulations to my awesome roommate for winning. He defeated 3 opponents by himself." After everyone had played a few games online, he picked up his phone again to see if there were any replies. He saw that many people liked his post and many people asked what the competition was. After replying to group stage of preliminaries, he found that a friend who often competed with him also replied, "What kind of awesome fighters can you college students have? I know a real young master who is quite famous in the martial arts circle of Songqing. Last time, 3 big men were holding him down but he just shook them and threw them away. Isn't he awesome? Xianxia, you're better at bragging than singing. My classmate defeated a professional 9th pin fighter." Qin Mo couldn't help but show off. Xiao's original name was Xianhuan. He had an older sister at home and could be considered a real rich second generation. Xianhuan immediately replied, "Stop bragging, you beast. If he can defeat a professional 9th pin fighter, he definitely won't be unknown. Tell me his name. What if I know him? Why don't I let him fight with the master I know?" "Fine, his name is Lu Cheng. If you have the ability you can go and find out," Qin Mo said stubbornly. Xianhuan was drinking afternoon tea with someone. He looked at his phone and smiled. He raised his head and asked, "My buddy loves to brag. He said he knows a super awesome young master. Can you help me?" Beside him sat a young man with sharp eyes. He smiled and said, "A super awesome young master? In the circle of Songqing I should know him." Xianhuan laughed and said, "Didn't I tell you? He loves to brag. What if he pulls an amateur fighter out of nowhere? You definitely won't know him. Tell me what's his name. Maybe we can learn from each other." The young man with sharp eyes smiled indifferently. Xianhuan took a sip of tea and said, "Lu Cheng? I've never heard of him." The young man with sharp eyes was stunned. After a while he asked, "Lu Cheng from Songqing University?" Yes. My buddy is from Songqing University. He said he's his classmate." Xianhuan observed carefully and said, "Is he really that awesome?" The young man with sharp eyes nodded heavily and said, "He's really awesome." "How about compared to you?" Xianhuan asked in surprise. At his current age he was still receiving education. The mature masters of Danchi State would at most be polite to him for the sake of his father. They wouldn't hang out with him for no reason. Among the martial artists he played with, this guy was the best. The young man with sharp eyes thought of the fight that just ended. He thought of the gesture that made everyone shut up and the fact that Lu Cheng had only been practicing martial arts for half a year. Although he didn't want to admit it, he still nodded with difficulty and answered, "He's better than me, better than you?" Xianhuan gasped. He didn't dare to answer Qin Mo's questions anymore. He didn't dare to mention anything about learning from each other. "Haha, I feel so good when I think of Xiao's face. Qing, you're awesome. You're famous in the martial arts circle of Songqing." Qin Mo laughed heartily. Before Lu Cheng could say anything, Qiu Zhigao asked in confusion, "How did you know the situation on the other side? You even know the details of their conversation." Qin Mo laughed and said, "It's not just the two of us having afternoon tea. Most of Xiao's friends are also my friends. I sold him out so quickly." Although he didn't want to admit it, Lu Cheng felt a little happy. He thought for a while and said, "What's the name of the young martial artist that Xiao knows? Maybe I know him too." "Pan Qingyun." Qin Mo answered honestly. Lu Cheng frowned and shook his head. "It sounds familiar but I don't think I know him." His roommates didn't bother with this question. Kai Zongming laughed and said, "Cheng, they said it's time to give you a new nickname. Iron Lung, 4 lungs, 8 lungs. I think those are too tacky so I suggested, Perpetual Motion Machine." Lu Cheng was stunned. He thought for a while and said, "Perpetual Motion Machine. It's okay but it's a little weird." "What's weird?" "A perpetual motion machine with unlimited stamina." As Kai Zongming explained, he smirked and gestured a pile-driving exercise. "Never stop exercising. F***ck off. You perverted guy, I don't know you." Lu Cheng scolded jokingly. While they were talking and laughing, the door suddenly opened. Tangwen came in from outside. "Tangwen, didn't you go to the calculus exam?" Qin Mo asked in surprise. Tangwen said absent-mindedly, "I finished the exam. It was all the knowledge points that Professor Zhang taught me that afternoon. He didn't accept any gifts. Professor Zhang is a model teacher. Zhao Chang sighed. He doesn't take a grade card. Tang Wen suddenly showed an expression worse than crying. But I still don't know how to do it. Lu Cheng and the others were stunned. They looked at each other and didn't know what to say or how to comfort him. Back in the small dormitory, he put his phone in place and typed quickly on the keyboard with his left hand. He shared with Xianxia the fact that he was in the limelight even though he wasn't there. Xianxia sent an emoji covering its mouth and laughing. That's awesome. Ching, you're now a person who can use your name. After chatting for a while, she mentioned the request of her roommates. Those little bitches want you to treat them to a meal. They want to see if you have 3 heads and 6 arms. I'm sorry to disappoint them. I'm a one-armed hero. Lu Cheng was very happy that Xianxia was willing to tell her roommates about their relationship. Ko Qian, you decide when to treat them to a meal. Then Monday at noon. Xianxia sent a pitiful emoji with her eyes wide open. You don't know how badly they teased me. Lu Cheng quickly comforted her and listened to her complaining. When she went to do her homework, he opened the web page to see the praise on the forum. As soon as he opened it, he was stunned because all the posts on the homepage were cursing him. Trash who uses dirty tricks. Disgusting person who doesn't have the demeanor of a martial artist. Villain who gets his way. Immoral. Arrogant people don't have a good ending. Did the forum explode? Lu Cheng was no stranger to this. He was a little angry, a little annoyed, and a little worried about his fans. But he soon calmed down and closed the web page rationally. If he cursed with this group of people, not only would it ruin his mood, but it would also be a waste of time. Anyway, they were just venting for a while and it would be over soon. At that time he could help to push up the top posts. The best way to slap their faces was to become stronger and defeat more and more masters. Then they could only look up to him. Even if they spit out dirty water, it would only fall on themselves. Calming himself down, Lu Cheng recalled every detail of today's match. He analyzed his responses from a bystander's point of view and reviewed his mistakes and habits. Gradually he felt that he had gained something new. For example, attacking the genitals wasn't a bad or ineffective move, but as long as it was appropriate, it would be easy for the enemy to use it as an opportunity to set a trap for him. When he said good night to Xianxia, he felt that he was strong again. The enemy's hatred was the best reward for him. Chapter 142. The sky was still dark and the street lights were still shining. Lu Cheng woke up early as usual, 10 minutes earlier than usual. After trying to take off his clothes to sleep last night, he found that it would be very difficult and time-consuming to put on his clothes when his right arm was injured. After a while he finally got everything ready. After washing up, he sent a message to Xianxia, who was sleeping soundly, complaining about the hardships of being a disabled person. Then, with a relaxed mood, he took a deep breath of fresh air that nourished his lungs and enjoyed the silence when everyone else was asleep and he was the only one awake. He jogged slowly to the lakeside, persisting in his daily training that had become a habit. When he arrived at the usual place, he saw his master waiting for him. He hurriedly greeted him respectfully. Geezer sure nodded slightly. Good. You didn't leave the line of fire with a minor injury. You know how to persist. You have to remember this perseverance. It's the foundation of how far you can go on the road of martial arts. Yes, master. Lu Cheng answered seriously. At the same time, he complained secretly in his heart, I'm not used to master suddenly speaking so politely. Geezer sure didn't say more. He reminded him, for 5 days you can only practice the still stance and the moving stance routine that doesn't involve the arm. Otherwise your injury will worsen. Lu Cheng nodded and asked curiously, Master, does Lin K really have to rest for a week and can't practice anything? Of course. Do you think I've eaten all these years for nothing? How could I be wrong about such a small injury? Geezer sure said unhappily. But it's good for him. Good? Lu Cheng was confused. Geezer sure laughed. Lin K's character is too stubborn and introverted. He doesn't know how to relax and his whole body is too tense. Even if he understands the meaning of withdraw, he doesn't have the state of mind to grasp and complete it. Now that he's injured and has to leave martial arts for a week, he can passively relax and experience life without daily training. Although he won't be used to it at first and will feel empty and irritated, after a few days he should be able to understand the meaning of still. Being able to release and withdraw is the Danchi realm. Master has a good grasp of Lin K's problem. Lu Cheng sighed quietly. For the members of the martial arts club, It was a lifetime of luck to meet such a good coach in the last years of their lives, the most critical time for martial arts improvement. To him, that was the luckiest of the luckiest. With a grateful attitude, he devoutly devoted himself to practicing martial arts. He first practiced the yin-yang stance, condensation stance, and other basic still stances a few times to review the old and learn the new. So he smiled and said, "I train around here every morning. Senior Li Mao, this is your first time here. I should be the one asking you this, right?" Li Mao showed an expression of sudden realization. He whispered to himself, "Sure enough, no one's success comes without a reason." As he spoke, he jumped off Shijing and smiled bitterly. "When I think about how I'm going to be part of the main force next Saturday, I'm a little nervous. Last night I tossed and turned and couldn't sleep well. I woke up early in the morning thinking of coming to the lakeside to get some fresh air and calm down." He glanced at Lu Cheng and asked curiously, "Don't you feel nervous when you're in the arena?" "Nervous? How can I not be nervous?" Lu Cheng laughed and said, "But my first challenge tournament was in Yanling, a foreign place. No one knew me at all. If I lost, I lost. I wouldn't lose face. When I thought about it, I wasn't so nervous. When I won the first round by planning beforehand, I felt more confident and gradually got used to the atmosphere of the challenge tournament. I could control myself and only feel a moderate amount of nervousness. As for when I meet a stronger opponent, such as Wei Xingtian, I always tell myself one thing." Li Mao listened with great interest and blurted out, "What is it?" "I tell myself, what's there to be nervous about? You should feel lucky to meet such a strong opponent in the arena and not in the life and death arena." Lu Cheng said concisely with a lot of emotion. Because the case of the ninth pin of the dark sect involved other matters and Zhang Mingle had absconded, the police were still in the process of follow-up investigation. According to a later call from Director Xing, the earliest time he would be required to testify in court would be in May. It might even be delayed until the summer holidays. And to avoid suspicion, he didn't visit Wang Su in the hospital until the end of the winter holidays. Li Mao was stunned. He felt that Lu Cheng's plain words had a deeper meaning. After a long time, he took a breath and said, "I always feel that you are more mature than me. Sai, this nervousness of mine is an old problem. I can't change it. I don't know why." "You don't know why?" Lu Cheng teased. "I thought you would tell me a sad story about how you were slapped in the palm by your teacher when you were young. That's why it left a psychological scar. Just like every time Detective Conan solved a case, the murderer would always tell a sad story that made the listeners cry." Li Mao couldn't help but laugh. "I thought about it seriously. It's not an external reason. It's just my nervousness. I thought I had overcome a lot this time. I didn't expect that when it came to the end, it didn't change much." Lu Cheng thought for a while and said, "Senior Brother Li, don't worry too much about this. I think that this kind of old problem can't be cured in a short time. It can only be changed slowly, bit by bit, through the challenge tournament again and again. It's normal for you to be especially nervous about the competition next week. You don't have to blame yourself for it. Anyway, this is just an actual battle training, not a result. Once you seize the opportunity and win a match, you will gradually like the challenge tournament." "That makes sense. I was too impatient to see a change and became more nervous?" Li Mao muttered thoughtfully. Lu Cheng thought for a while and suddenly asked, "Senior Li, do you have a girlfriend?" "Why did you ask this?" Li Mao looked at Lu Cheng in confusion but answered honestly, "No. I used to like my desk mate in high school. Unfortunately, she didn't like me and found another boyfriend. I haven't been able to get over it. I always feel that I haven't completely gotten over it, so I don't want to hurt other girls." Speaking of this, he sighed and said, "When I first joined the martial arts club, my main purpose was to find something to kill time and divert my attention, so that I wouldn't always recall the past. Sai, at that time it was really melancholy, loss and pain. After half a semester I almost calmed down. I joined the martial arts course again for the sake of securing a job in the future. I had the same idea as Jiang Fuxing and Li Xiaowen. Nowadays it's getting harder and harder for college students to find a job. I need to prepare earlier and more. At that time I actually didn't have any feelings for the martial arts club. It wasn't until I saw the painful faces of Lin Kei, Qin Jianghua, and the others and heard Coach Shi's encouragement that I fell in love with this place and this atmosphere. I really wanted to do something for the martial arts club and didn't want to be a burden to everyone. I've been training hard these days because I saw you guys improve so fast and so fiercely. I was afraid that I would be left far behind if I slacked off and couldn't make up for my mistakes." Listening to Li Mao's sentiments, Lu Cheng couldn't help but sigh. Senior Li Mao was usually a more active and cheerful member of the special training team, who knew that he had so many things on his mind. After saying this, Li Mao seemed to relax a lot. He asked in confusion, "Why did you ask me if I have a girlfriend? Are you going to introduce one to me?" "Oh." Lu Qing chuckled. "I just want to say that Senior Sun Jian is not afraid of failure or losing face when he has a girlfriend. You're a single dog who doesn't even have a girlfriend. Who cares if you lose face? Why are you so nervous?" Li Mao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He clenched his left fist and shook it gently. "Senior Li Mao, come on." Without waiting for Li Mao's response, he turned around and continued his endurance training. Li Mao was in a daze for a long time. Finally, he clenched his fist and said to himself, "Come on." The special training on Sunday morning passed quickly. Lu Cheng and Xianxia went back to the dormitory after lunch. They took the time to take a nap and recharge. When they were about to leave, he stood in the bathroom and carefully cleaned himself up. He was full of expectation for the next date. Although he felt very satisfied just practicing martial arts with Xianxia, holding hands, watching movies and sharing food with her, people were always greedy. Moreover, Xianxia said that she needed time to adapt when she accepted his confession, which made him a little nervous. He always hoped that there would be continuous progress and he always wanted to be more certain. "I don't know if I can finish my first kiss today." Lu Qing was in a daze. He touched the chewing gum in his pocket and the first gift for Xianxia. "P.S. Today I'm going back home after a rush. Let me make a copy. Otherwise I'll be in a bit of a rush every time." You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.